thank you for tuning in to the 2023 Primary Election Candidate Forum for Olympia School District Director District 2. This forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County in collaboration with the Thurston Community Media. The League of Women Voters is proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting or opposing candidates of political parties at any level of government, but always working on vital issues of concern to members of the public to defend our democracy and to empower voters. I'm Annie Cubberly from the League, and I'll be moderating the forum. Susie Galpin will be our timer. The candidates in this race are Jess Tourtellotte-Palumbo and Frank Durocher. Matthew Kaplan's name will appear on the ballots, but he has informed us that he will no longer be campaigning for this position. Graham Hatch informed us late yesterday that he will not be attending. The League stresses the importance of civility in these forums. Candidates, you've received the ground rules for this forum and agree to abide by them. For this forum, each candidate will have the opportunity to answer a series of questions in reverse alphabetical order, and the questions will be alternated so that each of you have a chance to start first. You'll also be able to give a 1-minute closing statement. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond, and if you need me to repeat the question, don't hesitate to ask. The timer will turn yellow when you have 15 seconds left, and it will show stop when your time is up. If you don't notice the sign, I will tell you when your time is up. For the first question, I'll begin with Jess. Question number 1, what makes you the most qualified candidate for this position?
Thank you. What makes me the most qualified candidate for this position is I currently hold a academic specialist position with the Evergreen State College in TRIO Student Success working with disabilities. I have a holistic approach when working with students. I also am a person who went through the education system through a K through 12 and had to really navigate through both mainstream as well as special education and really understanding what those barriers look like for our students. And I'm really fortunate to have my kiddo in an IEP transitional program over at Hanson. And I continue to be deeply invested in education. Even though I no longer work at the Prescott School District as a substitute teacher, I had continued for 3 years to be on their scholarship review committee because showing the success and making sure that the students have as much resources as possible to make their lives better is incredibly invaluable. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank?
When my family moved up here to Olympia in 2014, it was right as our eldest son was starting first grade, My wife is now a paraeducator in one of our OSD middle schools, and we have a 7th grader and a freshman now. What qualifies me best for this position would be my community involvement that I have, that I've engaged in over the years. One of the primary things that drew us to this area was the Olympia School District, and I got the privilege when we first landed here to be the stay-at-home parent for a couple of years while working from home, and that afforded me the ability to coach youth soccer and dive in to the schools a lot. Through that involvement, I've served a couple of years as president of the PTO at our elementary school and got involved in several more capacities in the schools in our communities. I've been a licensed foster parent, soccer coach, a team manager, and a youth mentor through Young Life. I'm an encourager and a facilitator, and I work hard to build bridges through honesty, integrity, and transparency.
And that's your time. Thank you. For the second question, I'll begin with Frank. Question number 2. The state requires that the since time immemorial tribal sovereignty in Washington state curriculum be taught in all the public schools. What's your opinion about this policy and how it applies to the Olympia School District?
So I think it's really important to understand the true, honest history of our past and where we have come from and where we are headed, so that we can see the good and we can see the bad and we can learn and we can move better into the future together.
Okay.
I think that it's incredible.
I should have said, Jess.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, I think it's incredibly important. I think that this is really demonstrated by what is happening currently with North Thurston and the Nisqually the work that's happening in the Nisqually district, and being able to see the presence there, being able to have students know their own history so that they can gain confidence about who they are and their culture, and really taking that into their life, into adults. But I also really think it's important for people, particularly students, to have a greater understanding of the context that they have of understanding people that are their friends, people that they're going to have relationships with, as well as their co-workers later on, and really being able to reflect upon that history. And I'm really proud of the Olympia School District for coming up with the Equity Policy Steering Committee and having the tribal leaders as part of that.
Thank you. Okay, for the third question, I'll begin with Jess. How should the school district address mental and behavioral concerns and affecting students? And should social emotional learning be a part of the curriculum?
Absolutely, social and emotional learning should be part of the curriculum, and I see that with my own kiddo, who's through the Hanson Elementary transitional. He brought home the zones of regulation to us and taught us the song. And I'll tell you, right before we came here, he was able to, I said, "I'm really nervous, Bubba." And he said, "Well, why?" I said, "I have to go talk to people." And he goes, "You're gonna be just fine." And I said, "Well, thank you." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because you're gonna be happy, because you are a happy person." Mm-hmm. And so that's exactly, to be able to articulate that 6 months ago didn't happen. And I understand it from somebody who watches the students come from the K through 12 and into college, and seeing the different skill sets for those who did receive social and emotional learning. It's all part of how their brains are able to articulate information, process it, and retain it. And that is definitely connected to their social and emotional and executive function skills.
Thank you. Frank?
At its core, SEL strives to help every unique kid find their place in this complex world. And I'm very much for every single student. There's no better way to do this, I think, than for our educators partnering with the families to identify the best unique approach for every individual kid. We can then bolster this engagement and partnership with the families and the educators with other community organizations to meet each kid exactly where they're at, which I think is vital to their success in finding each way that every single kid can excel in their own unique way.
Thank you. Okay, the fourth question goes to Frank to start with. What's your opinion of the board's role vis-a-vis the parents' role in decisions on curriculum and textbooks?
I think that it's critical that we are able to partner with the families and the communities along with the educators. Partnership between those is core to so much that I believe in. And I think that it's vital through some transparency to be able to demonstrate why we value, as the education organization, why we value what it is that we want to put forth as the curriculum, and let the parents ultimately have visibility into that, so that that partnership can be bolstered and be able to support things not only at home but also at school. And I think through those partnerships, that's where the kids, with consistency and knowing that everybody around them is for them, that's where they're truly going to be able to succeed.
Great, thank you. Jess?
And can you please repeat the whole question?
Yes. What is your opinion of the board's role vis-a-vis the parents' role in decisions on curriculum and textbooks?
Well, I agree a lot with what Frank said, which I think that there is some partnership between the parents as well as the schools to be able to work together to identify some of the curriculum that's going to be the most advantageous for students to learn not only about their academics, but about who they are as people. The one con that I would see in that collaboration is if there is a complete erasure of equity and inclusion work. So taking away textbooks or books or curriculums that really focus on being able to be reflective and being able to be aware more of, you know, different people and the lived experiences and how those are going to impact other lives outside of their own.
Thank you. The fifth question goes to Jess to start with. What programs or services services and or personnel would you prioritize in funding in the case of inadequate resources, which we know happens?
Yeah, absolutely. Paraeducators are crucial to the education system. I would absolutely I know that they weren't giving a pay raise to their salaries. I would absolutely rectify that in the future, because as a substitute teacher in the past, I know how they're crucial not only to the teachers, but to the learning environments of the care that they create and the one-on-one work that they do with the students, and they should absolutely be paid what they're worth and provided more opportunities to have more of them within the schools to create a sustainable school culture for these students.
Thank you. Frank?
One of the core personnel pieces that I would like to see brought back into our schools immediately would be the student resource officers. They're a critical component in our schools and our community, and they primarily seek to build relationships first, building trust at young ages and becoming a resource for older students as well, with mitigation as the focus, preventing situations from escalating, and also serving as critical first responders if needed. A lot of us have witnessed the back and forth on why we still don't have a contract for OPD and SROs, and there's overwhelming community support for it, but our current board just hasn't made it a priority to address, and they've been dragging their feet on that for far too long. I would also love to seek opportunities to brainstorm with other school leaders to consider partnerships that can supplement the educational model so that the district is not footing the bill for essential services inside our schools when funding exists elsewhere.
Thank you. The sixth question starts with Jess. Special education services are chronically underfunded by the state. How might this be remedied?
Oh, that is a really great question. I think right now when I'm looking at the budget and I'm looking at basically right now the district is allowing attrition to shrink the workforce, which I think is a short-term solution, but I think that that's going to create a long-term problem, particularly in special ed. You're going to lose talented staff, and you're going to not have families come here to gain the supports that they need for the Olympia school districts. And I think that I would absolutely, I know that there's those positions that are open and it might look good to kind of allow attrition to happen, but I think we need to really move forward with understanding exactly how valuable our teachers and our staff are and being able to provide the needed resources for these kiddos.
Thank you. Frank?
I think that having my wife on the ground, on the front lines here as a paraeducator in our middle school, she has witnessed and constantly brings back to me stories of heroism with special ed paras and the ways that they've been able to address and really reach some of these kids, and also some of the struggles, and I think that they are critical to being able to have success there. With regard to how those special ed paras can be a successful tool, I think that again, the partnership with families and being able to be aware of the whole student in those situations, I think is really critical. I would love to see more funding from the state and federal levels to be able to support that better.
Okay, thank you. You now have 1 minute for a closing statement, beginning with Frank.
I feel like we should be taking a relationship-first approach to everything. I'm for every student, and we should meet each of our students exactly where they're at, as you've heard. The good news about this approach is that we already have people in our schools that are incredible at this, our teachers and our administrators. But we've seen the district take a different approach to this lately, implementing a lot of policy instead of engaging with their hearts. We have current leadership that wants to stifle excellence in our students because they've said that excellence is exclusionary. This is the same leadership that has said that our music program is racist, and they're letting anti-police political views put our students in danger. We've got to do better than this, and we've got to get back to education at its core. Because history has shown us repeatedly that the best way to set up a student for success later in life is to give them a solid education. Equity is not stifling excellence at every turn. Equity is exhausting every effort to make sure that every unique kid doesn't miss their chance to find their unique flavor of excellence. Let's empower and support our educators to get back to what they're good at, teaching the kids and engaging with their hearts.
Thank you, Frank. Jess, you have 1 minute.
I believe that I'm the best candidate for this position because of the fact that I'm really coming from a place where I lead with a lot of care and a lot of transparency and a lot of love and a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of experience in the education system, and I really want to be able to come in and invest in this staff that we already have and allow them to get more training and to really lift them up. I'm also really keen on focusing more on being able to provide strong social work and counselors in the educational system, and really focusing more on restorative justice practices, which allow our students to come and be open and practice reflectiveness and care, and that's going to build their skills for being able to resolve conflict, for taking accountability, and really that's where I see our students thriving when they come into college and they're succeeding later in life.
Thank you, Jess Tourtellotte-Palumbo and Frank Durocher, for participating in this forum. We thank Thurston Community Media for producing and airing it. We encourage our viewers to be a voter in the primary election beginning July 14th through the primary election August 1st, 2023. Thank you.